Have you ever felt like there's something more to life than what you're currently doing?
Do you see the world differently than everyone around you?
Do you ever dream of achieving big things but feel stuck? We're Tiffany and Sid, and we are the Cycle Breakers.
Not long ago, no one believed in us.
The people closest to me said I'd make a great receptionist.
And mine completely abandoned me and left my life.
We started our journey 5 years ago in a basement.
Now, we live our dream life in the Smoky Mountains of Tennessee. But how did we get here?
We saw a life that was much better than the one we were living.
And broke through the blocks that hold most people back.
Like self-sabotage, crippling self-doubt, and the fear of rejection. But we knew we were made for more, so we bet on ourselves to make the life that we wanted.
And jumped into a life dedicated to breaking old cycles and patterns.
And now we live on 97 acres in the Smoky Mountains. We travel the world speaking on stages, and we help a small army of people break their cycles as well.
We're the Cycle Breakers, and we break through blocks that are holding most people back so we can go live our dream life.
Welcome to the Cycle Breakers Show.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cycle Breakers Show. We are the Cycle Breakers. My name is Sid Clevenger. This is my lovely wife,
Tiffany Toombs Clevenger.
Boom Boom. And we are here to help the people listening to this show break the cycle so they can go out there and live their dream life. In this episode, we're going to be talking about an important concept that was actually brought up originally to us in a book called Outwitting the Devil, written by Napoleon Hill. Some of y'all might remember him because he wrote Think and Grow Rich. But that book, in that book, he specifically talks about having a conversation with the devil, and they talk about something called hypnotic rhythm. And hypnotic rhythm has been a huge part of our lives and something that we've seen in a lot of the thousands of people that we've worked with, but also in our own lives. And we want to talk to you about the importance of what hypnotic rhythm is, how we've taken hypnotic rhythm and used it as something that has helped us continually break the cycle in our own lives, and how you can use it as well. So Tiffany, let's get started.
Let's do it. So firstly, if you have not read the book, Outwitting the Devil, highly recommend it. And that comes with a warning that it is not for the weak. Like it's going to trigger a lot of people because it talks about religion, and it talks about the educational system in a way that I don't think most people have considered. But in this book, he talks about hypnotic rhythm as this concept of people really. So let me back up a moment. Our unconscious mind is really designed to seek out familiarity. And it does that because we are primed. The most important thing that our unconscious mind cares about is survival, especially the primal part of our brain. And so we seek out what's familiar because familiar equals safe, and safe equals survival. And so what happens with hypnotic rhythm is that we tend to really I think of it as falling into these grooves of life where we just start doing the same things over and over and over. Right? There was a time when I lived in Australia, and I'm not proud to admit this, but I was going through a particularly rough patch. And there was 4 days a week, 3 to 4 days a week, that I would Uber Eats what I called small tub of Ben and Jerry's.
Small?
It was like
I know your ice cream habits, so I know what small is to you.
It was actually their little one, but
little one? You mean their bucket?
No, it was their little one. But I would get that delivered to my house, Rolo ice cream or cookie dough ice cream. And then I would sit there in front of my computer watching Netflix, just shoveling this ice cream into my mouth. And there were times where I would go through the whole process of ordering it on Uber Eats, having it delivered to my door and eating it, that I didn't even realize I had done that until my spoon hit the bottom of the tub. And I was like, it's like I came out of this spell. And that's really what hypnotic rhythm is that we get put into this spell on a societal level, right? School puts us into this spell to fear failure, and that failure means that we're not good enough, or it means something negative about us, or we're going to be in trouble, right? If you think about it, school, if you fail a test, you get in trouble from the teacher, then you have to take the test home and get it signed by a parent, and you might get put on, academic probation or things like that. So we're conditioned to fear failure.
Or conditioned to go out there and live in this boxed life of reality that isn't always have to be true. That's what's so
Yeah.
beautiful about entrepreneurs.
You know, we're conditioned to believe that you have to work hard to make money and all of these things. And we fall into these hypnotic rhythm patterns of doing things that maybe don't serve us anymore, or that maybe have started to keep us stuck. And we don't question them until we're at a point where things are so painful that we have to make change. And
Yeah.
so this is how cycles get perpetuated. There's this story, and I'm not sure if I've ever shared it with you, Sid, of this woman who cooked a meatloaf for her husband, who is an engineer. And so she cooked this meatloaf, she cut out, or this roast, it was a roast. She cut off like an inch of the roast on either side, put it into the oven, and her husband's eating this roast. And he's like, oh my gosh, this is the best roast I've ever had. But like, why do you cut the inch off of either end? And she says, I don't know. That's just what my mom did. So as it would have it, they were having dinner with his mother-in-law the next week. And she made the roast. And he goes, oh my gosh, your daughter makes this roast for me, and it is just as amazing as you make it. But I need to know, why do you cut the inch off of either end? And she said, well, that's what my mother taught me. And so the next week they see the grandmother-in-law, and they're talking, and he says, both your daughter and your granddaughter, they make the most amazing roast, but I got to know, why do they cut the inch off of either side? And the grandma says, well, I don't know why they do it, but I did it to fit into my pan. Right. So her pans were smaller. And so she had to cut the inch off of either side to make the roast fit in the pan. But that behavior had been passed down through generations. So we also have these like cycles and hypnotic rhythms that have been passed down generation to generation that people don't realize they're living out, that might be keeping them stuck.
Well, it wasn't even just like, I mean, I know that's true because you're bringing up all these memories of my Mimi and Pappy right now. But for me, there are definitely some things that weren't generational, stuff that I put my own self in, just because I would look at society like you had talked about before, like I used to numb myself with marijuana, and I would tell myself, oh, I have to smoke marijuana before I go to sleep because that's and I'd literally convinced myself that's medicine. And without that medicine, I can't sleep. And it was literally this like, and that's not true. For those of you that are listening, I don't smoke marijuana anymore. Tiffany will attest. She lives with me, so she knows. But, like, I think, that was one thing that was huge for me was, realizing that I got myself into this hypnotic rhythm. And then it wasn't just the marijuana. It was the staying up till 2 or 3 o'clock at night, because I had told myself ever since I was little that I was a night owl and I wasn't a morning person. And, so instead of being disciplined and going out there and doing here was the thing, doing what I knew in my soul that I needed to do to break the cycle. And, we all know what we need to do here. I don't think there's any magic. You're right. We ask ourselves and we know, right? We know, I knew, but at the end of the day, I kept telling myself this BS story, this false story to myself of, well, I can't because I'm not. And that was the language that I got myself into. I can't get up early because I'm not a morning person. I'm a night owl. Right. And I got into and that would be what I would tell myself. That's what I tell my subconscious. And for you, I know you brought up, family, which I know you definitely have had some of yours as well, Miss Ice Cream. But like for me, like those were two of my big ones that I've definitely broken over the last year. And it really came back from flipping that hypnotic rhythm kind of on its head. What would you tell people like is really the process of what would you tell people is really the process when it comes to identifying the negative hypnotic rhythm? Maybe tell people a little bit about the negative hypnotic rhythm, what we get stuck in, and then how you can flip that.
Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of our hypnotic rhythms come from our belief systems, right? They kind of lure us in to this state of like staying within the groove that is natural. So what most people don't realize is that 95% of our belief systems were planted between the ages of 0 and 7. And then we've been looking for evidence ever since then. I was talking to somebody just before, and they were like, nobody ever listens to me. And I have a ton of evidence that that's the case. And I'm like, you probably do have a ton of evidence that people don't listen to you, but you also probably have a ton of evidence of when people have listened to you, but your brain, because it's focused on proving this belief right, will always find the evidence that you're looking for, right? So if I believe that I'm not good enough, then I'm going to filter every single thing through that filter of not good enough. And I'm going to alter it and twist it until it validates this belief that I'm not good enough. And so one of the ways that we can start breaking this hypnotic rhythm is saying, well, how do I know this is true? Right? I have to work hard to make money. But how do I know this is true? Because if that was the case, if you had to work hard, if working hard equaled more money, then the people who work super hard, right? The blue collar workers, etc., they would be the millionaires. But that's not the case. So hard work doesn't necessarily equal your financial situation. It can, but it's not always, it's not 100% of the time, right? If you, I can't remember which book she said it in, but Brené Brown talks about, if you go out into the world looking for proof that you're not good enough, you'll find it. And so what we have to start doing is realizing, like, what are the filters that I have on my life? Because those are keeping me in this same groove, right? It's like, if I have a groove that's really deep and a groove that's really shallow, and I push, water into that space, the water is going to fill the deep groove first, because that's where the path of least resistance is. And so the hypnotic rhythm tells us that we've created this deep groove over time, and it's just easier to go that way. One of the reasons that people don't break the cycle is because there's a certain level of discomfort that comes with doing something new, doing something different.
Yeah.
You're at a nervous system level, you're not going to feel safe doing that, doing something new, right? Going to a new place, starting a new job, hanging around with a new set of friends. You feel a little bit more on edge, a little bit more uncomfortable when you're there, because you don't know what to expect. And our brain is primed to keep us safe. And so it's, it's going to pull us back to what people call the comfort zone, which for a lot of people isn't comfortable, but it's familiar because it feels safe. And that's what the hypnotic rhythm is it keeps us in this place where we feel safe, even if it's really uncomfortable. And so what we want to do to break the cycle is make the discomfort of staying the same feel worse than the discomfort of the change.
It's crazy. I mean, I remember listening to that book with you, because we listened to it, right? We listened to it on audiobook, I think, because
we listened to it driving to Tennessee, East Tennessee, for the very first time.
Oh, really? We did?
Yeah.
You remember? Oh, okay. I remember, because I was so excited to listen to it, but then it got started. And for those of you that don't know the story about Outwitting the Devil, and Tip, please, if I misspeak here, but he wrote it, and then he was too scared to release it because of the danger that he thought it could bring to society, right?
Yeah,
And
so
then,
he wrote this back in like 1939, back in the 1930s. And I think his family was also like, you can't put this out. Like, this is way too dangerous. And the premise of the book really is that he's interviewing the devil.
That's what I was going to say.
So it's this conversation of him and the devil going back and forth, and the devil kind of giving up.
For those of you that want a copy, we'll put a copy on the Amazon down here. So we'll put a copy of it. You can go ahead and grab it. Highly recommend it. Phenomenal book. Opened my eyes like crazy. And it's crazy. Like, for me, I had breaking those rhythms really came, and Tony Robbins talks about this, and I know it, but it came back to my emotional states. If I was sad, or if I was depressed, or and that's stuff we can go over, but like, I accepted that I was that. I accepted that I was just, this was life, this was all there is, and this is what I do, and that's it. And like, for the longest time, I never looked at, well, I can change that. Well, what's it going to take to change that? Well, it all starts with, a lot of people think it starts with their beliefs. It actually, we believe, right, that it starts with our identity, right? It's kind of like a non-smoker. I know you've, helped people when it comes to stopping smoking. And, Tony Robbins talks about this, but he literally, like, if you're a non-smoker, is it going to be easier for you to say no to a cigarette when you still view yourself as a smoker? Or is it going to be easier for you to say no to a cigarette when you tell yourself and you believe that you're a non-smoker? And like, that was really what did it for me with marijuana. I don't do drugs. I'm not a person that does drugs. I don't need to numb my body or numb myself to feel happy or to get myself to this thing. And it was an identity shift that I had to go through. And then the belief came. And then after the belief, the emotions came. And then after, and then after the emotions came, the actions came. And then after the actions came, freedom came. Right. And choice. And I think, like, for me, I had tried believing, motivating. And me and you both have our own, beliefs around motivation. And, like, it can only go so far. And for me, it only went so far until I wasn't able to motivate myself anymore because I had a bad day, or maybe you and I got into a fight, or, like, I woke up and it was raining and the energy was down, and I didn't know how to handle that energetically. So what did I do? I went to safety. Let me go smoke and let me go, roll up a joint or pop out the bowl. And, let's just one time. I'm just going to do it one time. I'm actually not going to hit it that hard. I'm just going to do it one time to get through that day. And it's what I find so interesting about people who, they get on these like plans where they're like, okay, for 100 days, I'm going to do this, and they count. And I'm like, what are you doing counting so that you can tell other people when you're not able to do it? Like, just change, just identity. Like, yes, I'm a non this. And when that can happen, like it did for me, especially when it came to marijuana, and you see me now, I mean, I'm not where I want to be in regards to getting up, but like without an alarm clock, you and I are up by 7 o'clock. Chad helps with that sometimes, but our son Chad, we talked about him on the show. But again, like, we're up, and I think the reason that I'm up and I'm able to get up is because I'm not this depressed guy no more. I get up and I'm excited about what you and I get to do, like shooting this show, like doing the workshops, like working with the thousands of people that we help break the cycle with. That right there is what fuels me, because now I know that, okay, I'm put on this world for this, and it's time that I wake up and I go do that. And really that was my big shift. Huge shift.
Yeah, and we'll go into identities deep in a future episode, but this really comes back to the language that we use, right? Like, if I tell myself, if I'm saying I am depressed, now that becomes an identity, and my unconscious mind is wired to create more of what I focus on. So if I'm constantly talking about being depressed or anxious or broke or not good enough, then my brain is going to go out and look for more evidence of those things. And when we even just simple shifts in our language can help us break this cycle, instead of saying I am depressed, I'm feeling depressed. Not I am angry, I'm feeling angry. Like right now I have the feeling of anger, but that's not who I am as a person. Or right now I'm feeling a lack of confidence, but I'm not unworthy or not good enough as a person.
That was such a good exercise that you taught me. And it's like, it's one word, right? You're going to I am to I'm feeling. And again, like, me and Tiffany are not saying that you do it one time on some blue Tuesday that it's going to change your entire life. What it takes is repetition. And that repetition turns you into the new person and the new identity that you begin to walk into. But, like, that was such a great exercise that, I mean, this was years ago you taught me that. And I just remember, like, now I'm so careful about I won't say careful, but now I'm just more cognizant of what I say. Because, words, it's crazy. Like, I was reading a book yesterday, I was telling you about it, and somebody was talking about how this book was written in 1925. And it was talking about someone asked them, oh, did your kid get measles? Does your kid get measles? And the person said, not yet. And like, literally, I read that and I cringed, because I was like, you're literally saying that they're going to get measles sometime soon. Not yet. No, you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between saying not yet and no, they have not. And that's, but like, one of the first things that I know I realized when you taught me this was speaking into the universe, and that the universe is going to hear us. And for some of you, the universe is God or Jesus or your creator or whatever religion you are. Totally cool, whatever. But like, I think that was really what really got it going for me at the beginning. But what, with that exercise, what is maybe something that someone could do or be conscious of doing and, write down while they're listening to this right now, that can be something that can at least start that process of getting out of a negative hypnotic rhythm and beginning to, kind of, because I want you all to know the negative hypnotic rhythm, or we kind of anchored in this show, can completely flip itself and go positive.
Yeah. So
100%.
the positive habits of like the self-care or the getting up early or exercise, right? Eating healthy, those can all become a positive hypnotic rhythm as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I mean, I would say now that we've brought it to people's awareness, their reticular activating system is going to be more honed in, and the reticular activating system, or the RAS, is like the GPS of your brain. It's the awareness center of your brain. So now that we've brought to the awareness this I am, these I am statements, you're going to become more aware of whenever you say the words I am. One that I'm really working on changing right now is that I'm sick. We've got a toddler who goes to preschool 2 days a week. And so he brings home all sorts of germs, and I get sick a lot more now than what I used to. And so what I am really working on is, in those moments, instead of saying I'm sick, speaking health into myself and saying I'm getting healthier. My immune system is getting stronger, because our words really do cast a spell, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the things was I didn't just talk, like I didn't just talk, like, how do I say this? I didn't just like, I used to not think when I talked.
Yeah.
Used to go really, really fast. And then whatever, literally the same phrases and the same words would come out of my mouth. And you know this, because when you first met me, I wouldn't know what I was saying half the time. It was just like I would talk, and then it was just like, this is what I say all the time. Really what it was for me is I got cognizant about what I was saying, but before I opened my mouth, I thought, like, I stopped. I didn't let myself open my mouth. And that wasn't, I'm not going to sit here and say that was easy, because it wasn't. But being conscious of it and being like, okay, like today, before I talk to this person or that person, or if I get into this type of situation, I'm going to stop. I'm going to slow down. It's going to give you a lot more clarity, by the way. I'm going to slow down, and I'm going to think before I talk. And anything that comes out of my mouth, I know that I'm putting into the world and into a future reality or a future life that I'm, going to be living. And I think like that was my huge breakthrough with that. And it was something you taught me.
So if there was one thing that you wanted people listening to this episode to take away, what would it be?
No matter how bad you feel like you're stuck in this negative, sad, depressed cycle, like like you're in this kind of, like, I'd say roller coaster, but to me it's more or less you're stuck in this loop, and you're in this negative loop like I was when it was to, I want you to take a look, even if it's not 100% your fault. I didn't think it was 100% my fault. Okay. But even if you think it's only 5% your fault or 2% your fault, regardless of whatever it is, I want you to take a look at what fault of yours that it is, like I did, and I want you to go out there and fix that fault. Because by fixing that fault and just admitting to yourself, I've made some mistakes, and it's okay. I've made tons of mistakes, okay? But I want you to know, like, by admitting to yourself, and this is something Jordan Peterson kind of, deep diving on some of his stuff. Some of y'all might know who he is. He's Canadian, but I would say just admitting to yourself that you are at some fault, and then looking at what that fault is and what you can make change today. And that change doesn't have to be perfect change. It's just that change a lot of times is just becoming aware of it and being like, I need to fix it. And then the next time you come back to it, this is how I'm going to start fixing it. But if we can figure out what it is that we can do, the second that we do that, the second that we admit that we made a mistake, that negative loop stops. And then we have a choice. The next choice we make is the choice of if we're going to continue that negative loop or we're going to start on the positive loop, and we're going to start beginning to get to the other side. And for me, it took me a while. Okay. Took me a while. Tiff knows. Been together for 6 years. She knows. But if you can stop and just admit to yourself that part of it is your fault, 5%, 2%, whatever, and then identify what fault it is on your own, and then just make a decision on what you're going to change from that fault, you'll turn negative rhythm, negative hypnotic rhythm, negative loops into positivity and into a positive life. And you'll start self-improvement. And as you start getting 1% better every day, and as you start taking steps every day, you'll be blown away at looking up at yourself in 2, 3, 4 months and how far you've come. It literally, you'll be, I hate to say, you'll be patting yourself on the back and realizing how good you are at this game of life. And that's one of the best feelings you can ever have.
Yeah. And if the word fault brings up like feelings of shame for you, then just say ownership, right? We all play a role in creating the life that we have now. And the good news in that.
See, I just made a mistake. I shouldn't have said faults.
That's okay. I'm the language person here. Let's be honest.
You are.
You know, if we can look at it as saying, well, I've played a role in my life and I'm going to beat myself up, or we can say, I've played a role in creating my life right now, and that means that I can create something totally different as well, then it's a lot more empowering. So there's always two sides to a coin, and we can choose to get stuck in the hypnotic rhythm of beating ourselves up, or the hypnotic rhythm of empowering ourselves and changing.
Is that a dance?
So that is it for episode number 2.
Yeah, guys, hope you enjoyed that one. That one was a long lesson for me and Tiffany. We listened to that book years ago, and we're still, working on things. So I want you to know it's not an overnight thing, but I promise you can do it.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much for joining us, and we will be back again with another episode very soon.
Talk soon, y'all.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Cycle Breakers. This channel is dedicated to giving you the tools that you need to clear out the blocks holding you back so you can live the life that you desire. Now, before you go, as our special gift to you, we have our 7-day nervous system reset. These are the exact exercises that I give all of our clients in every single one of our programs to help them regulate their nervous system, to make that inner work and clearing out those mental blocks so much easier. The best part, it's absolutely free. Just click on the link in the description below and you'll get instant access.